All right, we're starting. Hey everyone, welcome to today's discussion video. I'm your host Vash. We actually just like did the whole intro,
My,
but we are
my
we are
friend.
backtracking because unfortunately my mic was muted the whole time. So thankfully Nintendo came in the chat and he let me know that you couldn't hear me. We weren't that far in the discussion, but we are starting again. Hello, welcome. Today we are talking about the Suicide Squad. I am again joined by Broly and Goss.
Yo,
We
yo.
watched the movie last night, super late night. We watched it like at 2 in the morning. I think Goss started like at 5 in the morning or something.
Four.
Um,
Yeah, it started at like four.
yeah, and so we just watched the movie last night, and we're talking about it today. And so basically, the way it's going to work for our discussion today is we are going to talk just an overview of what we felt about the movie, and then after that, we'll go into spoiler talk. Obviously, the layout is different today. I'm using a camera now because I'm in a new setup. But Broly and Goss don't have one at the moment, or at least aren't able to have like a full setup like I do. So we'll have to work on that in the future. But yeah, just to get into it, let's go ahead and toss it over to Brawley, get his thoughts on the movie. What do you think, Brawley? How did you feel about it?
I really enjoyed it. I didn't watch the first Suicide Squad, and so I was kind of going in a little fresh. But I guess it's a good idea because they don't really talk a lot about the first one. We don't really know if it's like connected or heavily connected. Obviously, like there's characters there that are already there that we know Harley Quinn. We know Rick Flag was in the first one, and they're in this one, and so they know who Amanda Waller is. They know their setup. So that's why I feel like maybe it is a little bit of a continuation, but not a hardcore one. Like they don't really talk about the first one or the original one. I really enjoyed the cast of this movie. I think that's what really carries the movie for me. The interest levels is high because everyone is so good at what they're doing, all their roles. It's really takes a big credit to James Gunn as a director because he knows how to get all these people together and have these interesting stories and these interesting dialogue between two characters or groups, and it's really like things that like when I think about Suicide Squad, I'm not someone that's like super into the comic. I know about them. I know about them from the games, or I know about them from the animated movie that the DC comes out with. I know they're mainly part of the Batman universe because obviously like it's supposed to be mainly Harley Quinn and the Joker and Deadshot running it. Um, but still, like I really enjoyed the movie. I had a fun time the whole time. There was a couple of pacing issues for me, especially in the middle of the movie. I thought it started really well. Gave us really cool action scenes in the beginning, and then the end was super over the top. That's the thing I loved about this movie the most was that the movie is so over the top that you can't just not smile and not be like laughing at what they're doing, even though it's kind of crazy because you're so used to DC comic book movies and they're kind of super serious most of the time. This one wasn't. This was basically a little bit of Marvel. I mean, it's hard to say, but that's how it felt. It felt like a little bit of Marvel in this
Yeah, we had
DC
a lot of Marvel
movie,
actors in this too,
and we
and
did have a
actresses.
lot of Marvel actors.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go next. And so basically, for me, yeah, the movie was a wild ride. It was a crazy experience. From start to finish, it was just constant, just over the top action, over the top, gore and violence and comedy. It really ran a really nice line between comedy and violence. Like we would have something horrible happen, and then right after we'll have like a punchline or like something funny or whatever. So it didn't take itself too seriously. Um, and yeah, I think that I watched the movie with Broly, and for the whole first like hour of the movie, I was shaking my head, just laughing and like smiling and just being like, "This is so fucking stupid." And I was just like, "This is so funny. This is so dumb." Like it was one of those things where it's like when you watch if you've ever seen the movie This Is the End with Seth Rogen and his friends, it gave me that same vibe of just like here's these characters in wacky situations, and like they're not handling a situation like a normal person would. It's just over the top. And some of my favorite superhero movies are Kick-Ass 1 and 2, and this movie really did scratch that itch of like hyper realism, characters and being placed in a world of just like crime and all this other shit, and then you got this hyper fantasy superhero aspect of it where it's just like we're having a conversation, I cut your arm off, and like it's just like it's so chaotic and so wild. And yeah, I think if you like those kind of movies, and if you've seen a James Gunn movie, then you'll know what you're getting yourself into here. I think if you're looking for consistency and continuity and like some sort of like overarching story that's going to lead into more and more stuff, like maybe you'll be disappointed here because the characters really don't give a shit about each other too much, and there's just a lot of back and forth between how they should feel and what they do. But yeah, overall, I think I enjoyed the movie and I could see myself watching it again. The actors and actresses in this movie were amazing. Did such a great job. I loved the chemistry between Idris Elba and John Cena and their characters. They were so funny whenever they were both on screen. It was so funny and just so entertaining. But yeah, that's pretty much how I felt about the movie overall. What about you guys?
So I want to preface with that I wouldn't call myself a huge fan of DC. I definitely like Marvel stuff more than I do enjoy DC stuff, and that's just general, with comics and their animated series and stuff like that. But I know enough about lore, and like Black Adam is one of my favorite comic books. I guess anti-heroes, villains, or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And I did see the original Suicide Squad, and I watched Birds of Prey, and both of those movies suck bad. Like they're terrible. They're terrible movies. I do want to point out that this was the best rendition of Harley Quinn out of all the 3 movies that she's been in so far. And I was really surprised because I was so afraid that they were going to overdo her again. In Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, if you haven't seen those movies, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, in my opinion, is perfect. I think she's like the perfect role for that character. Her mannerisms and just how she acts as Harley Quinn is perfect. But in Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, it's like they take the Harley Quinn knob and they crank that shit up to 11.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just so like oversaturated and just way too like, oh my god, I'm quirky, look at me, I'm Harley Quinn. Like it's so like just way too much. In this movie, it was perfect. It was perfect. She didn't take up too much screen time. Like it didn't seem like the movie was revolved around her.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she did have big moments in the movie, but it in Suicide Squad, it definitely felt like it shouldn't have been called Suicide Squad. It should have just been about Harley Quinn. And I think that's why they made a Birds of Prey movie, because people that went to go watch Suicide Squad, all they cared about was Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I really think that out of all of these sort of like B and C tier characters in the universe, I think Harley Quinn over the years has really like stepped up and become more of a standout. It's essentially a villain. It's like if you have Batman and Robin, where you have a hero and a sidekick. Joker and Harley Quinn is a villain and a henchman, and it's Robin goes on to Nightwing and becomes his own hero, and Harley Quinn basically became her own, anti-hero or like villain in her own way. And so
yeah,
I do think that adds to why there's so much emphasis behind her in the first 2 movies. I mean, honestly, all the promotional art and promotional posters and all that shit for Birds of Prey had Harley Quinn on it more than anybody else.
Yep.
Because it was essentially a Harley Quinn movie for sure.
Yeah, and I like, as being like, out of all the DC universe stuff, Batman is definitely my favorite, and
Okay.
so like obviously, if you read and look into enough Batman, you're gonna find out about Joker and Harley Quinn lore and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
Harley Quinn, like seeing the movie adaptation of Harley Quinn in the first two like Suicide Squad films were just not like, they were almost nothing like her counterpart in all the other mediums. Like just way too quirky, way too over the top, just in your face all the time. Like no, it felt like you like I can't breathe. Like it's just so much. Like,
Mhm.
but in this movie, it was. I want to start with that. It was perfect. Like I feel this was the best on-screen version of Harley Quinn I've like ever so far, and it's fantastic. Margot Robbie did a fantastic job. But yeah, this movie was amazing. I absolutely loved this movie. I think it is a step in the right direction for future DC movies. I'm not to say like I'm not too sure as far as continuity goes with this movie and the rest of the DC universe. I know that we are getting another Batman with
Robert
what's his name
Pattinson.
from Twilight? Yeah, Robert Pattinson. Which obviously means that either the other Batman with Ben Affleck and that whole like new universe is going to get scrapped, or this is going to be like kind of
Like
a different
Joker.
Earth, like a timeline type shit. Yeah, or maybe like a Joker
Where
one
it's
off.
like it's like a standoff thing.
Yeah. So I'm not too sure about how the continuity is going to go with this. I would like to see. Once we get to the ending, I will tell you some news. We'll talk about that later. So I think there is going to definitely be a continuation from this movie as far as future movies in the DC universe, which is great because every character in this movie was played fantastic. The exchanges between the characters were absolutely hilarious. I think I laughed for like the first 45 minutes of this movie. I was just dying. Like every scene had something fucking hilarious in
Yeah.
it, and I loved that so much. Um, the one thing that I was really blown away by was just how I don't want to say like how they took no reservations when it came to the gore in this movie. Like
Yeah.
it was so insane. Like for even right, because you think about it, you're like, oh, Suicide Squad is supposed to be about like villains who kind of become heroes. So like you already have the sense that okay, these are bad guys, right? Like the thing is that in the first Suicide Squad movie, you didn't really get that feeling too much, and there wasn't really a lot of like the characters. The problem. This is the problem I have, and it's the problem I have with DC Universe movies in general.
Uh-huh.
Is the characters always feel so lifeless. Like you expect all these characters to have like emotion and like different types of like mannerisms and just like bring life into the character. And a lot of DC movies mainstays, especially recently, I feel like the characters just are so bland.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, we have Wonder Woman. Yeah, we have Ben Affleck as Batman. Yeah, we have The Flash and all these other characters. But they just, like, they don't bring life to the character on the screen. And that was, like, the biggest problem I have with those films.
Yeah, I
But
think that plays a lot into the fact that in those movies, like if we're gonna compare it to Marvel, in those movies, I feel like while the actor or actress can play the role nicely, like, oh, you remember that scene where Ben Affleck in the bat suit fought all those people in the warehouse? Like that's an amazing scene. It really looked like Batman, and we got Wonder Woman doing really cool Wonder Woman shit in her movies. But the problem is, I feel like in those movies, we don't get to hang out with these characters when they're not focusing on the main problem. And I think that that's what that doesn't help with bringing life to them, is because we don't get to see them interacting like at a mall. We don't get to see them, walking down the street and then looking at some weird kid like eating ice cream. Like just random shit that Marvel would do in a way better scenario where they take those characters and they're like, oh, here's Spider-Man, and he's on the bus and he's like talking to his friend Ned, and he can actually have lines in the movie that aren't just about the main plot about some mega super demon alien guy, like something like that.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of see where you're coming from with that for sure.
Yeah, but this movie was the complete opposite of that. There wasn't. I mean, there was very small, like what? So what I'm looking for, like I guess you could say flashbacks, to talk about, like to break down each of the main characters and kind of show where they're coming from and who they are, and but like these characters are having conversations with each other, and it's not. And again, it's not always about like the main objective. It's about other dumbass shit, which is like when you see superhero or supervillains or villains, whatever, get in a group like this and see them interact with each other, and just the way that they talk to each other and how they like interact with each other, it's so hilarious, because I feel like it's exactly the way that I would like in my head if this was like if this was never made and I thought about like, oh, how they would interact if they were like in real life. This is exactly like the image I had of like
Yeah.
what Suicide Squad should be. So overall, the movie was fantastic. I loved every second of it. I'm probably more than likely going to watch it again, just because of how like fun and entertaining it was. Because at the end of the day, that's what it like. That is exactly what a comic book movie should be, right? It doesn't always have to be to have this like serious tone or try to have some sort of like underlying meaning, and like, nah, you need to look past the film to figure out exactly what this film means.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't have to be artsy all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
I was talking to Broly about that, and I really do think I really for those of you who watch my streams and who hang out in my like when I play games and stuff, my distaste not for Kojima but for his fandom and how they praise him like a god. And I was talking to Broly about this yesterday, and I really hope, and I know it's gonna happen, but I really hope there aren't people out there that are like, oh, James Gunn like does it again, and like every scene has deeper meaning, and every moment is so artistic, and like it has a greater purpose. And I'm just like, sometimes you can have a scene just be chaotic for the fuck of it.
yeah,
And
exactly. Like, and that's the reason why I love this movie so much, because like there's been so many DC movies that have come out where like people look at it and it's all about like this, like, nah, man, there's you see this scene right here, you see where the Joker's talking to Batman, like, nah, dude, there's an underlying, there's a metaphor
yeah,
in
yeah.
that scene that you don't understand. And I'm like, dude, why can't comic book movies just be about like fun?
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's
why I
what they're
love
supposed to be
that's
about.
what I love the Kick-Ass movies, because that's literally what it was. It was just like this kid wanted to be. He was like, "How come no one's ever tried being a superhero? Fuck it, I'm gonna do it." And then the first day he's out there, he gets stabbed and hit by a car, and it's like
Yeah.
okay, that could happen.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I mean, I think until he does a bad movie, I don't think it's bad that people will like praise him as a god.
oh no, you can
So
think he's a
far,
great
and
director for sure. I agree with that.
yeah,
I'm
he's a
just
great
saying, like,
director so
there's
far.
also there's people who over glorify people's
Well,
work,
yeah,
and
I think you're just jaded by Kojima and the way people present him. And I mean, like, he wasn't perfect on everything, but most of his games so far have been really good. Before Death Stranding, so I think it's okay. I understand where you're coming from, like, like it's not like he's like Martin Scorsese or something like that, right? But so far he's been able to take something that wasn't really really good, so far was pretty much the worst movie by a lot of people in DC,
yeah.
in Suicide Squad, and actually make it really good. Like, not maybe not Captain America Winter Soldier good, right? Not Endgame good or something like that. But I think it's good in the sense of what it's supposed to be, and how it is, trying to find its own footing in this comic book, saturated world of film, basically.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's fun. I think he did great, and I'm a fan of his for sure. What he's doing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Guardian movies are great. Brightburn was really cool, and this movie's great. Yeah, James Gunn. It's definitely one of those where like, oh, it's a James Gunn movie. Okay, I know what to kind of expect, and let's see what he does this time.
Yeah.
Nintendo in the chat says Snyder trying to make everything super artsy kind of sucks. And yeah, I mean it does because there's something about the way Snyder shoots his scenes and like nothing feels real in that world, you know? Like nothing everything looks CG and everything looks like overly painted over with effects and shit. I don't know. It's really weird, but yeah. So like that's what like my main point is that I feel like sometimes a director can be brilliant, but then he can also have a part of the movie or have a big section of the movie just be chaotic fun, and I'm just worried because when I walked away from this movie. I thought to myself, okay, that was wild, that was crazy, and I like it didn't take itself seriously. And what I'm getting at is that there's gonna be people out there that are like, oh no, the Suicide Squad is so deep and it's got such like richer meanings and like understandings of like people and how they let go of sanity and blah blah. And I'm just like, or it's just a wild movie, and
I don't think they will. I didn't
Yeah.
get that kind of reaction or vibe from Guardians 1 or 2. I think people are gonna know this is just an
But
overtop
I don't know. I feel like
war
Guardians
movie.
is more coherent. I like that. That's why I don't compare the two. Yeah, it's the same director, but I feel like Guardians, you have Peter Quill. He's a kid. His mom had got a tumor in his
Well,
brain. In the
yeah,
brain.
because it's more in line.
Yeah, it's
They
like
had a
lined up
timeline,
well.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a phase.
So I mean, yeah, the only thing that I can say to that is there will be something that we'll talk about at the end of this that is going to help in that regard.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Like
think
that,
I know. I think I know
like
what you're hinting at. But yeah, we'll have to
yeah,
talk about that for sure at the end because that's a big thing.
yeah, it's a
Um,
big thing.
But okay, so I mean, like I said, we do want to get into the spoilers, and we kind of gave our overview of how we felt about the movie. Before we give our verdict of the movie and then go into spoiler stuff, what do you guys? What was like one moment that was like really? I think for me, a part of the movie that was really cool and like just made me laugh and it was awesome was when I gotta phrase this correctly when they're infiltrating that camp that took Rick Flag and Peacemaker and Bloodsport are one-upping each other, trying to kill the bad guys. That whole section was so funny because they're just like, oh, you killed that guy this way. Well, I lit the guy on fire, and oh, you shot him in the shoulder. I shot him in the face. Like stuff like it was so funny. And like I said, the dynamic between those two characters was awesome. And then also King Shark was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, King Shark was pretty sick. I guess my whole thing was I was just very impressed on John Cena's character. I think he's the one that was kind of well. I mean, I can't say star of the show, right? Because there's so many people that were good.
Mm-hmm.
So he was one of the bright spots for sure. I know a lot of people crap on his movies as of late. Basically because he's not really given the ability to really show his, kind of like I guess like wrestling side mostly like the way he can talk on the mic and stuff like that. But this one he did a really good job. I really was invested in his character, and I'm really hyped for if they decide to continue it with him.
Before we get to Goss, Logical Robot in the chat says, "Say what you will about Snyder, but Gunn really dropped the ball visually on this movie. It looks cheap and generic. The lighting in most of the scenes was abysmal. It looked severely underdeveloped. It also had 3 instances where it could have ended but continued. It's 20 or 30 minutes too long. I'm completely sidetracked by all the praise." Oh yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, like the middle of the movie, the pacing's bad, and it's kind of hard to give like a in-depth talk over it all unless we go into the spoiler section, and we're not quite there yet. We're almost there. But I mean, you bring up some good points, and we can go over it. But Goss, what was one more thing that you wanted to say?
I think my favorite parts of this entire film were definitely the interactions between Peacemaker and Bloodsport. I think my favorite part of the whole movie is after they're done showing off to each other, and Bloodsport tells them no one likes to show off, and Peacemaker's like, unless what they're showing off is dope as fuck,
Yeah.
and then Bloodsport turns around and he's like,
Fuck.
fuck, he's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's pretty
it was
good.
hilarious. They did really good.
But all right, we can
Yeah.
go into verdicts right now, so then we can start talking about spoilers. If we want to just give like a 1 out of 10, how you guys felt about the movie, we can go with Goss first.
So this is where people are gonna get mad. But I give this movie a 9 out of 10. I think it's probably one of the best DC movies outside of the Batman series. It just does not, like, no other DC movie outside of those films holds a candle to this movie.
Well, there's a lot of bad ones. Let's just say that.
Well,
like,
I mean, but that's
you know what I
that's
mean?
but that's not, you can't just be like, oh, they're bad, so we don't include them. Like
No, no, no,
that's
no.
the
What I'm
point.
saying
You
is
know what I
like
mean? Like,
it's easier to see a bright spot when a lot of the stuff beforehand were really bad.
well, even if you want to remove the rest of the DC universe and compare it to Marvel, like, you want to put it in, like, okay, how would this rank
yeah.
how would this rank up in a Marvel movie? This movie is really good, dude, and actually beats a pretty, maybe not like a huge chunk of Marvel movies, but there are definitely a good handful of Marvel movies that I can say that this movie is better than. And like, so even just in that, like, using that comparison, this movie is one of the best, like, superhero, just fun cape shit type films that, like, has come out in recent years.
Yeah.
That doesn't have Marvel tied to it.
Right.
So Goss gives it
So-
a 9. What about you, Broly?
Yeah.
I give it an 8 out of 10. It was really, really good. I think it was just good primarily because, the characters are so good. The story didn't have to make too much sense. It was just like, one of those movies that's like, you're gonna have fun, and that's what I thought I had. It was a lot of fun. So I think this movie was pretty good.
Okay. For me, I think I'm probably gonna be the one with the lowest score. I'm gonna give it a 7 because while I did enjoy the chaotic nature of it all, and I did enjoy a lot of the characters and the scenes that I was given, I also I'm the, because I know you guys were right now just talking about, like, comparing, like, oh, this movie's better than this Marvel movie, and this movie does a better job at keeping me entertained for this much longer compared to this other movie. For me, it's like I have a hard time. Gosh, your mic.
Oh, my bad.
I have a hard time comparing movies like that. Like, for me, okay, everyone always points to Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp as, like, lower end Marvel movies that they're like, oh, those weren't that great. But for me, it's like Ant-Man and the Wasp are giving me a different emotion and a different type of story than what this one is. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh yeah, this one's better, but, like, I cried in this one, or, like, oh, this one's better, but, I was emotionally moved in this other movie. And it's so, like, it's harder for me to make those kind of comparisons. But overall, I think, I want to give it a 7 because me as a viewer, I was lacking that sort of fulfillment of, like, okay, these characters I invested time to, like, should I still care for them? And how does this all make sense in the grand scheme of things? Like, that's always playing in my mind. Like, and we'll get into it with spoiler talk, but, like, there's certain events that happen where, like, certain cities are kind of fucked up. I mean, you saw in the trailer. The trailer had, Starro and stuff like that. So, like, that city's fucked, and, like, all these people get taken over, and also there's all this random stuff happens, and it's just like they have answers to these problems, but they're so inefficiently placed that I'm like, it could have been handled better. But I can also overlook it because I was in the right time, in the right mood. I was like, this is fun, chaotic, stupid, fucking superhero shit, and I'm about it. Like, I had fun. So that's how I felt about it, and that's why I'm giving it a rating of a 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay,
Cool.
that's fair.
But all right. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, you can stop watching here. If you got this far, I appreciate you. We do discussions on pretty much everything from Marvel, DC, just random TV shows. I think the What If series for Marvel is happening soon, so we're gonna watch that. I know I've mentioned it in a couple videos. I need to watch Invincible because I need to do a discussion for Invincible.
You
But
need to watch it,
I
dude.
know, but we are gonna move into spoilers. So here's your warning. Thank you so much for watching, and now let's go ahead and get into the spoilers. So, who wants to go first?
Ross, you to go first.
Okay, so I wanna start off with the fact that I'm super glad that what's his name from Saturday Night Live got bodied instantly.
Pete Davidson?
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
God.
okay, so can we talk about how when I first saw the trailer for Suicide Squad, I couldn't believe at the cast of actors and actresses that were in this movie. Like, we had so many names. We had Javelin, we had freaking TDK, we had Captain Boomerang. We had all these
Weasel, my
yeah, we
boy
had
Weasel.
we had all these characters. And when I first saw the trailer, I was like, holy shit, like, what are they gonna do? This is gonna be some crazy ass shit with a bunch of people just fighting and throwing shit around. But then, yeah, like, not even 20 minutes into the movie, like, half of them die. And
Bodied.
and what's crazy is, what's the name of the actor that plays Yondu? The one that was, the long-haired white guy in this movie?
Oh, yeah. He played
I don't know his name.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is that the character himself, like,
Oh no,
came
I know
and
the
went.
character name. It's Savant.
Savant, yeah.
Savant. Yeah.
Savant, I thought he was gonna be a big player because we start the movie with him. He kills the bird in that room.
Yeah, he looks kind of sick.
And
It's Michael Rooker.
okay,
Michael
Rooker.
Okay.
And then, yeah, sure enough, in the beginning of the movie, Blackguard, which is Pete Davidson's character, goes up and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm the one that called. Like, I brought him here. Like, you guys can fucking kill him now." And then he gets, like, just his face completely shot off. And I thought for a small second when Savant was looking over the little edge, I thought for sure it was like him having I thought it was gonna be one of those things where it was like a fake out. Like, it was like, yeah, we're all dying, but then it was just him dreaming in the plane ride over there or something like that.
Wow.
But no, sure enough, Captain Boomerang dies from the helicopter. What was the name of that one alien princess girl?
Morgul?
Morgul or something like that.
Yeah.
She died.
She was funny. I got the bird.
Yeah.
And she like grabs onto the fucking helicopter,
Yeah,
starts
he was screaming the whole
screaming. Just screaming.
Yeah. Yeah, so it just fucking erupts into this nightmare of a situation, and what's crazy is it shows how much of, like, a soulless person Amanda Waller is, because she had a
I
whole
was
other
about to say that.
yeah, she has a whole other team on the other side. But I mean, obviously, to her, it could play both sides. To her, it's like, yeah, I'm making these people fucking, get ripped apart and get shot and all this other stuff, but they're horrible people. Like, they're villains. They're people who've killed and all this other stuff. And so it's like you can play both sides with her. But yeah, that whole beginning section was just insane. How'd you all feel about any moments in that?
No, it was really good. I liked it.
Yeah, that I know people don't like this shit because they don't like this movie trope or whatever, but I am a fan of showing something in a movie that happened. Like, I like getting mementoed. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Memento, but it's a movie about a guy who has it's not Alzheimer's. Is it Alzheimer's? I don't remember. He has a mental disorder where he needs to see things, to remember stuff. And the whole movie starts, instead of you getting the beginning of the movie at the beginning, you get the ending of the movie first, and it plays backwards, and then the end of the movie is actually the beginning. And I love shit like that. Like, I like it when they give you, like, something that happened in the future, and then it's like, 3 weeks earlier. Like, I like that shit because especially, and it works with this movie because right out the gate, it's just insane. Like, it's just a bunch of insane, like, you get instantly hooked. So, like, after it's over and you're like, oh, 3 weeks earlier, in your head you're like, oh shit, well, what the fuck happened to get him to this point? Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so I'm a super huge fan of that. I loved that entire scene. It was hilarious. It was
Probably
like
did it too much
super
though.
gory.
I think they did okay. I think they're like I was always telling Vag, I was like, I really like the transitions. You know, they would be like, oh, this is Mission Harley or Mission this.
Operation Jotunheim, and then it
Yeah,
would
Operation
change to like
Jotunheim,
Operation
Operation Harley.
Harley.
Yeah, I mean that
Uh,
was it was really cool cinematic stuff. Like I
I
think my
like that.
favorite one was the metal bars that said Jotunheim, and like it was like a
Mhm.
perspective shot. That one was really cool.
Yeah, that one's cool. I like it because I'm not a fan like of the Marvel ones where like they just show the city name like in big white letters, and I'm just like, okay, dude, like don't treat me like I'm an idiot or something. You know, like you can put it in another font, not like super old school, but whatever, right? Um, yeah, like just touching on that, I thought that they did it okay. I like the first one because you kind of were like, what? Like everyone's getting their ass kicked, you know, and it's only Harley and Flag, and like, okay, but where's everyone else, right? And then it's like, oh, but they were a diversion team, like they were basically sent here. You guys go die over there, and the real team's gonna go in and not have any patrol or anything.
Hmm.
And I thought that was really really cool. With, it had Bloodsport, Peacemaker, King Shark, Ratcatcher 2, and Polka Dot Man, right? I think those are the 5 that was on the other team that were
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, we're like the real team. And yeah, like I kind of, I really like the because basically it's like saying, okay, we're not gonna show you why everyone's getting together. You guys are just gonna get them on a mission, period. That's it. And then we'll slowly introduce these characters or like have some backstory for them. And yeah, like I mean, it's just like I said, like from the spoiler review or free review, I'm just so appreciative of the dialogue between the characters. Everybody talking to each other was so good, and it was like funny at times, or most of the time it was funny. But a lot of times you really get to see the characters shine, see how they are. Like Peacemaker was the one that I liked the most because you look at his name and he's like, oh, I'm Peacemaker, right? And I'll do whatever it takes to make peace, right? But you have to really think about that. Like, okay, what is he means? He'll kill women and children if it means peace. He'll
Yeah.
do all the dirty stuff if it means peace. So that's what he's all about. And Bloodsport was all about like them trying to make him a leader, and he's like the one that everyone kind of like looked to and stuff. And he's like, I don't even want to be here. Like I'm forced to be here.
Yeah.
But fuck it, right? Like I'll just do it anyways. And so it was really cool. Like the beginning scene was really really cool. Obviously over the top. I think my favorite part was like them all jumping in the water and then Weasel dying in the water.
Oh, my boy
That
Weasel.
was
He's
so
like,
funny.
you didn't tell me he didn't swim, and Waller's looking at like the people like her team, and they're just kind of like looking away. They're
Dude,
like,
that group of people, like they all have like no names or whatever, but that group of people that work for Amanda Waller were just so like it was just like people who were outside the void of life. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
picture them going home and then having a pizza and just chill. Like no, they were just like people who just didn't give a fuck about their own life and they were just there and just doing their own thing and they're just cynical and sad and shit. But yeah, when they were all taking bets on who would die first, and like whenever they were reacting to Weasel drowning, that shit was just fucking. Funny.
Yeah, that guy flicks off the cat, like
Yeah.
flicks off the picture of
Yeah.
Weasel. He's like,
Yeah.
"Fuck you, man. Lost me money."
Yeah, but we got Logical Robot in the chat says the movie itself has a severe identity crisis, altering and shifting what kind of movie it is constantly. It reminded me of The Predator. Wasn't made to feel anything for a character, and King Shark, who was handled well in the Flash TV show, was degraded down to a comedic sidekick with a dad bod. Boomerang deserved way better too soon, as they killed him off. I knew it was going to go the X-Force Deadpool route, Deadpool 2 route. And so, yeah, I really think that's something that we're overlooking and that isn't in play here. And this might be an answer to what you have, Logical Robot, is that there's definitely going to be a huge difference in enjoyment value from people who know nothing about these characters and people who actually read the comics and understand what like their more understanding of their origin and how important they are or how they're supposed to act. And for me, I think with the characters that they did focus on and what they gave me, I was able to understand a little bit of how they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to act. But yeah, obviously Captain Boomerang was around and he died, and it was like, okay, um, there he goes. But I mean, from what the video that I saw yesterday, apparently Boomerang's always come back. So like I'm pretty sure he's not dead or something. I don't know.
Don't bring him back. So, like I said, this is like, if you take it too serious, you're not gonna like this movie.
Yeah.
If you take it like, if you're way into details, way into the character's lore and how they should be, you're not gonna like it. But if you're just kind of like, I just want to watch a movie about comic book heroes and they're kind of similar to what they are supposed to be, this is the movie for you.
Yeah,
You're
like
gonna-
this was
you're gonna-
leading into what Goss said earlier about Margot Robbie. Brawley and I had a pretty good conversation about what, because we were watching a review and the person was saying that like, man, Margot Robbie's perfect as Harley Quinn, and it just sucks that she didn't have her movie like for her and just her and blah blah. And then Brawley was kind of questioning it a little bit, saying like, oh well, no, like she, Birds of Prey was basically her movie in a way, and she's had plenty of time with the character. But I think what we mean was that like Harley Quinn, we saw the growth of Bucky as Winter Soldier through the first Avenger and then in Civil War, in like all these movies he's been in, and he's had consistency. And it just sucks that we have this amazing actress playing Harley Quinn, but we don't get that consistency of like having her in this movie and how she's grown and what she's learned, because it feels so disconnected. And it's very unfortunate, because that's what a lot of DC movies are. Is like, oh cool, I can get excited for the Flash TV show, but who cares? It's it's in its own world. He's not gonna go fight alongside the heroes. He did meet the movie Flash, which was cool, but same thing with Green Lantern not being around. Same thing with Cyborg, and the
That's what they gotta fix is Green Lantern.
yeah,
They
Green
gotta
Lantern,
definitely-
and then we even have the Titans show, which actually I saw the first season of Titans and it wasn't bad, but it definitely wasn't Titans, how we know them. So it's like, even then we got Starfire and we've got all the characters in Titans, but they don't feel a part of anything. So it's like, that's the problem DC has, is that you don't have any continuity and you don't have any sort of like long lasting power with actors and actresses. So it falls on like on a whim. Like it's just kind of like, okay, cool. And that's why this movie was refreshing, because it was like I was watching the movie knowing that the director knows, okay, who gives a fuck about these characters, because this isn't part of a universe, At least not part of like an overarching universe like Marvel and
another thing too is I know now, it's really funny that guy mentioned King Shark, because I actually enjoyed King Shark's character the most. Every time that first of all, I'm a shark lover. I like sharks. Second of all, he was voiced by Sylvester Stallone, which made it even better. And the character was just so lovable. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like I absolutely loved that character.
Yeah.
And I said in the beginning, I'm not a huge DC fan. I know a lot about staples, mainstays in the DC universe. I know about Starro the Conqueror, because it was the first villain that the original Justice League of America fought in the comic books. So Justice League of America issue 1, the first issue that they come out in, they fight Starro the Conqueror. So I know about him, and really I only knew about Harley Quinn. So any of the other characters, and I know King Shark isn't as a minor character, right? Because I know he ends up becoming like a villain for Aquaman. He makes multiple appearances, but you have characters like Polka Dot Man, and I didn't know who the fuck Polka Dot Man was, so I googled Polka Dot Man. Polka Dot Man was a very minor character in the Batman series. Nobody gives a fuck about Polka Dot Man.
Yeah, I think Savant is also like a C villain in Batman.
Like it's a very some of these superheroes or some of these characters in Suicide Squad are very C tier, D tier villains. These are not like, it's not like Black Adam showed up and like Black Adam's in Suicide Squad or fucking it's not like you see these it is not like these characters need to be portrayed in a very specific way. They're not mainstays. a lot of these aren't. Yes, Starro is a really big, like, he's a villain throughout all of the DC universe. He comes out a lot. Obviously, Harley Quinn comes out a lot. I'm not too sure about King Shark or Peacemaker or any of the others, but I mean, just knowing that, like, Savant, Polka Dot Man, like all these other, like what's his name? They're just throwaway, like, minor villains. So why do I need to, like, if they were not fleshed out and made into, like, these huge characters in their own original, like, comic book story, why should they be like that in this movie? Like, it does not make any sense.
It does. It is
that.
very interesting that Suicide Squad, as like a brand and as a team and a focus, has been getting so much attention. Like, it's like, I don't know what it is about Hollywood, but they love Suicide Squad because they've already gotten 2 movies, and I mean, it's not Hollywood, but Rocksteady's making a game for them, and I'm like, what? Like, I can see the appeal of a squad of that's just like, I don't give a fuck about the rules and we just kill people, and it's like there are people who are out there who enjoy the, like, superhero fantasy of, like, violence and R-rated, methods of dealing with situations. So I understand that, but it's just weird that, like, they just really want us to like the Suicide Squad, and but to be honest, out of all the movies, this one made me like the characters in this squad the most out of all the other movies.
Yeah, and I can say that I feel like the reason they do that is because, I mean, we can argue the whole Marvel versus DC thing, like, any day of the week, right? Like, you can have that conversation, but believe it or not, there are a lot of DC fans, a lot. There's very, very many in Hollywood and out of Hollywood, and I think it's the fact, especially with this new movie that's coming out, it's the fact that DC has yet to make a, like, Deadpool-esque movie, a Guardians of the Galaxy-esque movie. Exactly, that's my point. The original Suicide Squad is what this movie was supposed to, like, that movie was supposed to be this movie, right? That's why Hollywood likes it so much, because it is the first DC movie that's come out that's not super serious, that's not like, oh, it's got to be about, like, oh, these characters have to be super fucking serious and stoic, and, like, it's very what's the word I'm looking for, like, I would say, like, adult, right? Like, the themes are very, like, dark and foreboding, and, like, all the DC movies have been like that. There hasn't been a DC movie where it's just fun, right? Like, where you don't have to have backstory. Nobody has to give a shit about these characters.
Arguably the first Suicide Squad movie should have been that, but yeah, they did dive into Will Smith's Deadshot as, like, more emotional about his daughter, and which was interesting.
Even that movie, like, has that shit. Like, it's like I said, the reason why I think that they love this movie and why Hollywood is so attracted to, like, the idea of Suicide Squad is because it is a story that can be told without having to have some sort of, like, insane background and all this, like, all these characters that hold so much weight to, like, the DC universe, right? Because, like, at the end of the day, if we talk about this movie, right, like, yeah, King Shark is important in a bunch of DC comics, but at the end of the day, nobody gives a fuck about King Shark. Like, like, nobody gives a fuck about him.
So we have Task 360 in the chat. Thanks for coming back for this discussion. He said, hold on, I gotta scroll up here. He said that the detachable kid should have done a bit more. And I think it's funny because they ask him, he's like, TDK, what is that? And he's just like, my name. And he's like, just
That's
some
my
letters.
name.
He's like, just some letters. And then Boomerang's just like, every name's letters, you dickhead. And and it's just so funny that we end up finding out that his power is detaching his fucking body parts, and so his hands are floating over, and you see him focusing, and he's like, ugh. And like it's just smacking around the guard. Like, that's when you know what kind of movie you're getting into, like, right there, because the Blackguard dies, like, right before that, and then Waller says, okay, detach TDK. And then, it's just, from what I remember and from what I read online and from a video I saw, TDK is a brand new hero. Like he's never been in a comic. It's just a brand new character for this movie. And what's funny is that character fucking dies in the fucking dumbest way. They're like shooting his arms, and he's
I
like,
love when they shoot his arms, and he's like, yes.
he's just on the floor, and he's like,
That shit
it's
was so
just
funny.
so stupid. Like
Yeah,
honestly,
and the-
like that's
And
why
the
this
the arms
movie.
are still like wailing in the
Yeah,
air, dude,
yeah.
like getting shot.
That's why this movie is like. It's a movie. If I was having a house party with like beer pong and just fucking everyone's just hanging out, this would be a movie I would have in the background. That's why like the seriousness and the tone of this movie is the same as if I was watching This Is the End with Seth Rogen and James Franco and all them, because that movie is also fucking dumb. It also has like nudity. Logical Robot in the chat said that he wasn't a fan of just the forced nudity in random sections, like that one dude with his dick out in the fucking camp. He just like opens the window
Yeah,
and he's
it's
on the
like
phone
funny,
and he's
dude.
like, and his fucking dick is out. It's just like, okay,
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
but I don't, we don't want to see that right now.
We didn't
I ain't trying to
dude.
see
We
that.
didn't-
And but then yeah, we got the same thing. Like we're going through for some reason they have this moment where they're in a strip club or like they're at a bar, and they are forcing the thinker through the back way. And like that's what I mean, is that there was never sort of like a consistency and like expertise to the plan. It was just like, we're all fucking dumb. We're just a bunch of villains with like, we're C tier, B tier villains, and we have to do this, so let's just figure it out. And it's just like there was never really like a set plan of like, oh, the thinker's gonna show up and we're gonna get drunk. I would.
I wouldn't say
I would.
that. I think there was a plan. I think there was, planning and stuff like that. I just think it was too convenient. That's all.
Mhm.
Like they said, okay, we're gonna go. We got a bus. We're gonna take you to the club. Thinker will be at the club. Take it, right? And then it was just like they just had to overcome little things. Obviously, things changed when they had to go get Rick Flag, and then they had to go get Harley, and so like I felt like there was a plan. Maybe not Jotunheim, because they kept saying like, "Oh, just go there and destroy it," but they didn't really say how. We just kind of got it
Yeah.
the end, the plan at the end. But I think there was a I do feel like there was a nice sequence. It was just kind of like the split in time thing is what kind of like
Throws it
threw
off a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I think when they did that when they did that again towards the end, where we saw all of the underground with Peacemaker stuff happen with Rick Flag, and then it jumps like 8 minutes earlier and we're upstairs with King Shark and them. It's just kind of like it takes you out of it a little bit. But honestly, I think if I were to pick a part of the movie that was probably the lowest point for me, was the entire section of them trying to get Thinker, and then also Harley Quinn with the Spanish monarch guy, yeah, the president guy. Like those two sections were just kind of like, they're trying to move along like their progress throughout the days.
Like they try to make them important. Like I mean, I guess you could say that Harley kind of needed the scene because it's her way of like how she's rejecting the Joker and then kind of rejecting other men, and like how she's dealing with it, because it is a part of her character. She kind of explains that like, like how like bad exes are, and tell you like the music you like isn't real and all all that stuff. So she's still kind of coping, I guess.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
I think they were just
but-
trying to show some sort of development from where she was 2 movies
Yeah,
ago, but
yeah.
like it was just oddly placed, because it's like, oh, she's trying to survive on the forest, and then for some reason like this guy has an infatuation with just Harley Quinn, some like C tier villain in fucking the Batman world. And he's like, oh, my people love you, and you're the symbol of anti-American whatever. And it's just like, it's just like what? Like it's just so random that
I mean,
she's
just
there.
like underground, and like I guess it's a whole thing of she was with Joker, so now she's still you see her as a C tier villain and stuff, and I think she's already climbed the ranks a little bit. Like maybe not in the power level, but like to the underground, she's really someone that's really like focused on her and like looked up to. So
honestly, I'd have to disagree with that. I would not consider her a C tier villain. Like at every at every point.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Before you go on, Logical Robot just pointed in the chat. That one scene, I even called it out and I was like, hey, whoa! That one scene where they're having their discussion, the generals, and they're like, that one lady comes in with her breasts like just bouncing. Like, and she's presenting like some pamphlet. She's just like, señor, like tenemos blah blah blah. And I'm like I was like, that girl had like 4 seconds of screen time, but she owned it, and I was like, God. I was like, what the fuck? It was like there was so many moments. There was so many moments in the movie that was like that. It was like the dude's dick in the fucking in the camp, and then it was like that lady walking in, and then
like Polka Dot Man thinking about his mom. When
when he's dancing, and then everyone in the club is his mom.
Fucking hilarious.
Dude,
I was fucking god, dude. Like his facial expression, so like the actor. I've seen him in something else, but his facial expression when he's like pointing up and everyone is his mom. It was like, what the fuck am I watching, man? It was so
good.
They
so
banned that lady so many times as his mom.
Yeah.
As fucking Starro.
But I do agree. I believe it was I think Tass mentioned in the chat, but I do agree. Polka Dot Man was kind of overpowered. I think that's why they kind of kept him away.
They killed him off.
They killed him off, and they also like he didn't do much in the whole movie. He was just kind of there, and then he's the one that set off the explosion by accident. But he also
you've seen him. He was in Ant-Man. Dark
please tell
Knight,
me. Please tell me if I'm right. Is he the guy who's Bernard in the Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen?
Oh, I think you might be right.
Because I saw his face and I was like, "Is that fucking Bernard?"
I don't think so. It seems like him, but I don't think it is. It's not Bernard.
No, I don't think it's him.
No,
No, but
damn.
he was in the Ant-Man movies. He was in The Dark Knight. He was in the new Blade Runner. He was in Bird Box. He's cast for Quantumania.
Who's he in Ant-Man? The fuck? I don't know.
He is.
Do you know Ash?
I'm pretty sure he's just like some random fucking guard or like one of the
He's
shield
gonna
agents.
be in all 3 movies. He has to be something.
I
He
don't
played
remember.
Kurt.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But okay. So
plays
what do
Kurt
you
in
remember what you were
Ant-Man.
saying, guys?
Oh yeah. So we were talking about Harley Quinn. I don't think that she's considered a C tier. I don't think I've ever considered
Not
her
anymore,
as a
but
C
before,
tier.
yes, she was. Like
Well,
in
no,
Batman.
I don't
I'm
even-
talking
I don't
about
even
animated
think that.
series. Animated series Harley Quinn was
Yeah.
not fucking like A or B tier.
Hey, Ross, you're not gonna put her over Mr. Freeze, over Scarecrow, over Penguin.
Well, no. I'm not putting her up there, right? But she definitely, even in the animated series, like I think she's definitely a B tier villain.
Dash. Shut up, man.
No, I'm just laughing because with that part where King Shark was putting the mustache and he's like, "Nah, it's still you, mate." And he's like, "Fuck."
It's so good.
That was my favorite.
Holy shit, dude! That shit, like, there was so many. That's why the movie was enjoyable. It reminded me of Kick-Ass. It was just moments where it was just like, that was fucking stupid, but I'm laughing my ass off.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I think Harley Quinn is at least a B tier villain because even in the animated series, she was in it a lot, and she was, and maybe not in the beginning, but she was definitely in it a lot.
I think the only way I could give her that ranking is if, like, because in the Arkham games, after Arkham City, Harley Quinn has her own platoon of like gesture aren't like people, and they follow her. And if she had some sort of following like that was like, you know, on a grander scale, then I could put her up higher. But if it's just her, it's just she's always gonna be like accompanied to, like she's always gonna have someone around, or she'll or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. But I think that's why I feel like this movie had the perfect portrayal of Harley Quinn so far, because even though I still feel like she was the most important, like as far as, you know, how important the character is portrayed in movies compared to their comic book counterparts or their animated TV series counterparts. The most important character in that regard is Harley Quinn, right? People are waiting for like Harley Quinn to be made into like a really good movie or like TV show role. Especially
I mean, she has a TV show right
after
now.
the Suicide. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she does.
And I heard it's really good.
Yeah, and
I
she,
actually
I
heard
think
it's really
yeah,
good.
and she's had her own comic run since New 52 did their thing. So yeah, like I
Yeah,
said, like over the years, she's definitely moved up. So it's like it's awesome because we always want to see characters, we want it, but also the people DC Comics want their characters to all be fucking big hitters. So obviously they want to do their best to make them grow and become that point.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that that whole scene with her and the president guy was a little too long. It was a little like I didn't believe it, and it didn't make sense. And he was just trying to basically say like, oh, they want to take me seriously. I need to have a wife and I need to have a family that I'm a people of the I'm a person of the people and blah blah. And then she kills him like right after they do it, and it's just like it was just unneeded because she gets captured right after. But it was cool because that whole sequence where they're trying to save her and then she gets out was badass. Like it was
Yeah.
she fucking is pretty smart about how she gets the key from the guy, and then she goes on a whole rampage. It was pretty much what she did in Birds of Prey. But yeah, I think that whole section of the movie is where it started picking back up again after that, after she breaks free from being tortured. But
Right.
but I will say,
I
going back to her, the way she's portrayed, and that this movie being the best version of Harley Quinn, I will say, like I said, Jared Leto's Joker, like people hate him, and yeah, he definitely didn't do great, and especially with how he looked at the end of Justice League. But we had moments in the Suicide Squad movie where we saw Harley Quinn as a doctor interviewing him, and we saw her fall into the pit with him, and we saw her put on the Jester red and black outfit. So I feel like they gave her a good origin, but it was all like within quick scenes, and it was like, man, we have such a good actress. Like I wish she had a better, cohesive entry into the world, because her origin was it all looked great and it was blocked properly, but it was just it's just a bummer.
that's funny that it's funny that you guys like really I in my opinion, that scene with the dictator or the president or whatever,
Mhm.
I actually really enjoyed that scene, because to me that scene was exactly who Harley Quinn is. Like sometimes people forget that Harley Quinn is fucking crazy. She's psychotic.
Mhm.
Like she's gonna do shit like that, bang some random dude and then kill him after.
Yeah.
Like that's shit she
No,
does.
I can agree with that. I'm
You
just
know what I
saying
mean?
I'm just
So,
saying
like,
when it
but
comes
the
to the
thing is,
understanding of the movie and like it being needed, you didn't need it. Like I
well,
thought that
I
was too
think,
long.
but the thing is, I feel opposite of that,
Mhm.
because, and the reason I do is because the other movies that she was portrayed in, that didn't exist. So for them to put like and it's not like it was a 30-minute scene or anything like that. It was a small little like 5-10 minute segment just to show that, hey, this is not the same Harley Quinn that we've been showing in the other past movies. This is exactly what you guys have been asking for.
Yeah.
And that's why I like that
Yeah.
scene, because even though you feel like it's unnecessary and they didn't have to do that, I feel like they did. I feel like they needed to put something like that in the movie to show, like, hey, this is how we're portraying Harley Quinn in this movie, versus all the other bullshit
Like
that
the way I look at it is, you know how she escaped, right?
Yeah.
And you know how she got captured, right? You could have taken off the whole Presidente thing and just edit it out and just put that when she escaped and she got captured. And that's the same thing. That's all we needed. And it's still the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that moment you're saying of her, chaoticness and being able to, do it with some guy and then kill him. I think for me, yeah, I would want a scene like that or something like that in a movie that had a cohesive setup to it. And for me, I'm at the point now where this Margot Robbie Harley Quinn is, I'm sitting here waiting for a reboot. Like I want a whole retelling of her, and then give me a scene like that. That's why I felt like it wasn't unneeded, because we had 2 movies with her where they should have done it and they didn't. So now I'm past the point of where I want it with this version of her. I want it in a reboot, like where it's something new.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's how I feel
The
about
thing
it.
is, I think another thing is also, it's like kind of what you touched up upon in the beginning of the movie, right? So the thing is that with this film, we're not gonna get any sort of like origin story with these characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think James Gunn went into this movie just, and I think this is kind of where, this is probably my biggest gripe with the movie is James Gunn created this movie assuming that people were just gonna know how these characters interact and how they like what their mannerisms are and what their day to day is and how they do specific things. So like with that the Presidente scene, like I feel like James Gunn just assumed like, oh, people know who Harley Quinn is. Like they know she's crazy. They know she's psychotic. They know that she would like definitely do some shit like this just because she's Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest issue I had with the movie, because a lot of people aren't gonna assume that. A lot of people don't know who a lot of these like B or C tier villains in the DC universe
Yeah,
are.
and that's why I gave the movie like some praise there, because while I didn't give a shit or know about these characters prior,
They were still done very
there was
well.
enough. Yeah, there was enough
yeah.
there. They gave me the cookie crumbs to be like, okay, you know, Polka Dot Man has family trauma. Bloodsport, you know, has abandonment issues, and his dad was an asshole. Like, you know, stuff like that. And so they gave me the cookie crumbs of what I needed to enjoy these characters. And I feel like while Peacemaker, we didn't get his whole backstory. We just understood, oh, liberty and for America, then I'm gonna do what it takes, and like that's all you needed. Like, and so it was fine that enough for me because of the lack of continuity and the lack of care for lasting character power, you know, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
to kind of get back on track, we can talk. Well, so the two things that we haven't really talked about is the main plot of the movie being that Starro is Operation Starfish, and the main goal is we have to get rid of the evidence that America was a part of this whole
Oh,
process.
that wasn't the main goal. That was like the plot.
Yeah, that was a plot to it,
That was
but
like,
well,
yeah.
I'm giving an overview, and so
Oh.
the main goal was send this squad out to destroy the building, and
Yeah.
that's it. And it didn't matter if the Sorrow got out or whatever. We said they had to destroy it, but we find out that the America's trying to also hide and cover up all of their shit that they've been doing with experimenting on people with Starro's little spawn or whatever. Or extensions of himself. And then we also didn't talk a lot about Ratcatcher, which is a very standout character in this movie, and she kind of, you know, had some really impactful scenes, and her backstory was a really touching one about her father being a like a thief, but he would control rats, and that he made a contraption for her to do it too. So I think just to kind of like wrap things up and go over the ending, basically Ratcatcher finds out that Peacemaker is stopping Rick Flag from taking the evidence and taking it to the press, because Rick Flag is basically saying, I'm fucking done being a guinea pig or being like, you know, used to cover up their America's dirty little secrets. And then obviously Peacemaker being the guy he is, he's like, no, like for if it helps liberty and it helps peace and the world will go into chaos knowing this, then I'm not gonna let you do that. And so they start fighting. Unfortunately, Peacemaker does kill Rick Flag, and it was a great scene, because Rick Flag is just a normal dude. He's just there, and he's supposed to be the leader, kinda in his own way. And we get this awesome fight scene. It's very I guess intensive and more it's a more intimate fight scene where it's just two dudes just fucking using what they can to kill each other. And he almost gets the upper hand, but then Peacemaker grabs this like shard of the bathroom or whatever that's around him, and he stabs him right in the heart. And it was such a good line to go off of, where he was like, Peacemaker, like
What a
fuck.
joke.
Yeah, he's like, what a fucking
What a
joke.
joke.
And then he passes out.
Yeah.
And it's cool because you get some internal conflict with John Cena's character as Peacemaker. He has this like look about him where it's like, you can maybe see he's questioning himself, but then right after Ratcatcher sees the hard drive that has the information, and he goes right back to work, where he's just like, give me the hard drive. And she runs away with it, and we have another chase. But yeah, so towards the ending, was there anything that stood out to you guys? Anything that you guys want to point out for how the
I mean,
movie
I thought
wrapped
the
up?
whole kaiju fight was so so crazy, and so like the way they beat him was so weird, but it definitely ties in the fact of Ratcatcher and her ability to control rats with her little wand thing. I did like the whole Peacemaker versus Bloodshot thing because it kind of goes back to like what they're all about, and the way they kind of ended it. I thought it was really good. I like the ending. Obviously it's over the top like the whole movie was,
Mhm.
but it was good. I think it was good.
Yeah, I was a little like, it's one of those things where it's just like you can sit there and call it lazy writing, or you can call it like a cop out, which it kind of is. But it's a cool concept of gathering every rat in the area to take down a kaiju, but like it's just more so like Ratcatcher was so much more overpowered than what she made herself seem throughout the whole movie. And like, for example, why couldn't she just call all the rats in the world to just fucking hoard Jotunheim and just like,
Yeah, I know that's the complaint you had.
yeah, and like just send all the, if you can take down a fucking huge ass Starro the Conqueror kaiju, you can fucking send a bunch of rats to just destroy this building from like miles away. But like, it's one of those
Okay,
things.
but Gandalf's birds could have taken Frodo.
Exactly,
And
it's one of those things. It's one of
the
it's one of those things where it's like the movie. You need to understand that it's like, oh my, the stakes are high, and I'm gonna do everything I can to solve this problem, and that's why she can summon so many rats. And like that's like, you have to kind of give the narrative a little bit of slack in that way, because yeah, like if that's the case, then there's so many heroes and so many things in these movies would be solved in seconds. Like I think that's one of the biggest ongoing complaints with the Flash TV show, is that the Flash could literally solve these problems, but every episode has to end with, "Come on, Barry, just run faster!" Like and that's literally it. And like,
Run, Barry.
yeah, run, Barry. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where it's like you have to tell a story, so you have to like bring down the power aptitude until it's needed tremendously, and then amplify it in a way. But
Dude,
that-
that whole ending, I was literally like, oh my god, my boy King Shark is gonna get fucked up. Like I was like the
dude,
whole
that
time I
guy,
was
he
like,
was
dude, please don't die.
indestructible.
I was
They
like,
were
please
all
don't die.
shooting him, and then they start reloading their guns. They're like kind of just like groaning a little bit. They're like, oh man, and they're like reloading because they wasted a whole clip shooting his ass, and he just gets up. And I'm like, dude,
And
this
he's
guy's
like,
a fucking
it's nom
monster.
nom time, dude.
Yeah.
Yo, and he fell from, dude, when he fell off the building, I was like, oh, he's
Yeah,
dead.
no, he's
dead.
indestructible. Dude, there's one part where where Starro like knocks a building onto him, and he just walks out of it. And I'm like, dude, this guy's a fucking beast. He's literally
What
like,
a beast.
yeah, he was just like a monster. And then that one part where he's like, he was very reminiscent of Hulk. Like, it was just like kind of dumb,
Yeah.
strong guy, and then Bloodsport's like, you're like, hey, what was his? What they call him? Like Nahuna or Nakihuna or something like that.
Nanway.
Nanway, they were like Nanway, nom nom, and he's like nom nom. He's like, okay, and he just jumps up there, and he's just like,
I love how he thinks he's like the smartest thing on the planet. That's like my favorite. Like the first interaction you have with him, he's reading a book upside down.
Yeah,
and then he's like, nah, man, me smart shark,
Yeah.
me read book. And I'm like, oh my god. And even the scene where they're like during the debriefing scene,
yeah.
where like everybody's raising their hands for like
And he's
questions
just like,
and shit,
"Hand?"
and he's like, hand, and like,
Yeah.
and then they're like, yes, Nanway, that's
Yeah,
your hand.
yeah,
And
he-
then like
he was-
he puts his arms out, and he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
dude,
He's
I'm
just like,
smart
oh,
as
fucking,
fuck.
yeah, I knew that shit. He put his arms back. Yeah, yeah. It was some great moments for sure. I think honestly, I think while it didn't really do anything, the visually, like when it comes to capturing the shot and like showing it off to the audience. When Harley Quinn stabs the eye, and then they're in there, and there's all that red, and it's like floaty in the water of the iris, and all the rats come in, like that shit was fucking wild. Like that was such a crazy.
That was cool.
It was such a crazy like cinematic like moment, and just to be in this eyeball of this huge ass fucking starfish, and then like rats are eating the inner fucking veins and shit. it was insane.
Guys,
but
Milton's dead.
yeah, Milton. Yeah, that whole part.
Who the fuck's Milton?
But yeah, I mean
Oh,
that
and then
that's
I think, man, I do want to rest in peace to Polka Dot Man. He was
yeah.
probably like my second favorite character in the
Mhm.
whole movie,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
And
Yeah, I'm
like
telling you, he was OP.
he was too good.
I
And
believe
he was
I
like, "Hey,
think
Polka Dot Man, that's your mom."
yeah,
It's like a giant
yeah,
version of his
a fucking
mom, like
yeah.
destroying the city.
What was it? I think Tass mentioned it in the chat, but yeah, he probably could have taken on Starro by himself if he just like aimed at the eyeball or something. Like he was
I'm a
literally like
fucking
this. He was
superhero.
disintegrating like his fucking leg. It's insane. That's somewhat this crazy power of just the power of light and just fucking destroying whatever it touches. But yeah, he died a horrible way. It was just fucking, I'm a superhero. And then
Yeah,
it's
just
over.
fucking smash. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the last thing that I want to talk about before we wrap it up, because we are pushing it here. So we do have two post-credit scenes. The way the movie ends is basically Idris Elba's character Bloodsport finds Peacemaker at holding Ratcatcher at gunpoint because he has to get the drive back, and she's like, "Why are you gonna kill me? Like take the drive. I don't want to die." And he's just like, "I'm thorough. Like I get shit done, and I'm not gonna leave you alive because of it." But then Idris Elba's character comes up. He shows up because he's going through different floors of the roof collapsing, and he sees her at gunpoint, and so they both shoot at the same time. But we mentioned Peacemaker mentioned earlier in the movie that his bullets are smaller and they combust into like multiple shards that can also like explode and shit. So they're also very brittle and fragile. So he shoots through his own bullet. Bloodsport shoots through the bullet to get to Peacemaker and shoots him right through the neck. And he asks him why, like how, and he's just like, smaller bullets, asshole, or whatever. And so he falls down, and then so yeah, that he gets the drive back, and that's after like that was like towards the end of the movie whenever they have to fight the kaiju. But yeah, so Starro dies, and they find a way out of the problem of having the bombs in their head from the beginning of the movie by basically blackmailing Amanda Waller and saying like, you know what, we have the drive, it's in a secure place now, only I know about it. So if you kill any of us with that little device, then I'm gonna put it out to the press, and it'll automatically be uploaded or whatever. And so he basically buys their freedom with it. Rick Flag would be pissed because he wanted them to get exposed, but Bloodsport.
He kind of says like, "Oh, like
Yeah, this
can't
is our
have
best
it
chance.
both
Yeah, we
ways."
can't have it both ways. Like, this is our best chance. And so yeah, that's how the movie ends. They all get out, and they're freed from the prison. But then, so we get one post-credit scene where we find Weasel on the beach of that place that he died, and he spits up a bunch of water, and he wakes up, and he's just like, you know, the crazy bug-eyed. He's just like looking around. He's like, he's fucking just like running down the beach, and it's just like,
Weasel's
oh
alive.
yeah, so Weasel's alive, and he didn't die, which is funny. And what's cool is we found out that so that in the Marvel universe, we're in spoilers, so I'll talk about spoilers for Guardians. But if you haven't seen Guardians movie, Guardians 2, spoiler, Yondu dies in that movie, and the replacement for him is that one henchman of his. He puts the fin on his head, and he starts learning how to whistle and whatever. He actually did the motion capture for Weasel, which is hilarious. And he was also in the movie as Calendar Man. He shows up towards the beginning of the movie. He's Calendar Man, and he's talking about he's talking to someone through the glass. I think it's Weasel.
He's just talking shit though. That's
Yeah,
all-
he's
that's
talking
all
to
he
the
says.
werewolf.
Like, oh,
Whatever. But yeah, so a lot of Marvel actors were in this. So that was the first post-credit scene, and then the second one, which was super surprising, we have two of the people from Amanda Waller's team going through a hospital, and the doctor there is basically saying like, "Oh yeah, we found him. His heart was still beating." And at first, I was like, "There's no way Rick Flag's fucking alive," because they said heart was still beating. But yeah, John Cena, his character Peacemaker is still alive. He is in the ICU and he's all banged the fuck up. His legs up in a sling and he's got like bruises and scars and shit. But he's alive. And yeah, so we do know there is a confirmation that Peacemaker is getting his own TV show.
Directed by James Gunn.
Directed by James Gunn. So we should have known that he was still going to live, but yeah, we are going to be getting more Peacemaker, and that's very interesting because yeah, that goes into what we were talking about continuity and about having an actual universe of characters.
Wow.
So I don't know how much they're going to build off of this, but it is interesting to know that it's not quite over yet with at least Peacemaker and I would think Bloodsport.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why they didn't flesh out a lot of the characters as much as a lot of people would have liked. Because I like James Gunn knows like, okay, we can't really reveal too much about this character right now because he's going to have his own TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that that's going to be that way for a lot of the characters that were in Suicide Squad. I'm assuming that Harley Quinn is definitely, like you were saying, like that whole reboot idea. I definitely foresee that happening. I definitely foresee Bloodsport.
It's just so funny because if we get a Harley Quinn reboot, then that means we'd have to get another Batman reboot. Like, and fuck.
Well, maybe that's going to be the one with Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, but then we would need a new Joker. Like, it's just so much more. Like, we would have to start all over.
That's what DC needs. They need to stop.
They need to stop being.
If Batman,
that's a good thing then.
If Batman, that's a good thing then. Robert Pattinson, then stick with him and continue with that. You can still have Harley as Margot Robbie. It doesn't matter because he's behind the mask. Look at freaking the Tim Burton films where there was 3 different Batmans and they still kept a lot of people. So it's okay, but they need to have continuity. That's the problem that they have compared to Marvel where everyone's the same.
But I feel like because now that I know about the Peacekeeper show, like or the Peacemaker, I feel like this is the start of it. Like, I feel like what's going to end up happening is like, this is going to be like the fresh new start that everybody wants for like a new extended DC universe, like continuity start. And I feel like this is where it's going to start.
Yeah. Tass says in the chat, DC keeps on unplugging and plugging back in different Batmans until it works. Yeah, I think it's just like they'll get a good Batman and then they have a bad run with there's just always been something about like a director fucks up, someone leaves, or a director has to stop because of issues in real life, and it's like there's so much flippy floppy with the direction and like consistency with their world building that it's like it's just hard to be this far behind compared to Marvel, and people just say the Marvel put the bar so high, so it's like. That's why they did Justice League, because they're like, okay, we want to make our superhero team up and we've got all these actors, let's just do it. But then we miss out on all the things that make it important because we don't get those characters solo movies. And then it's also bad because they have the Flash in the movie, but then they have the Flash from the TV show, and then we don't have any fucking Green Lanterns except for like small hints of one at the beginning of Justice League. So it's like it's just too much chaos. Like if this is the starting point, it's a weird one. But it's like pick a place to start and just start building. And if it's going to be through TV shows, that seems to be working with Marvel. Like we got a lot more depth with Wanda and Vision and Bucky and Sam and everybody who's gotten TV shows. We get more from them. So if you want to have Peacemaker have a TV show and that introduces like, Booster Gold, if Booster Gold shows up and then Booster Gold introduces like a new timeline where there's a whole different fucking group of like the Flash and Batman, and then that's gonna be the new universe, then do it.
The main thing they need to do is find a Batman, keep him, right? Because as much as everyone was, like it's so I guess weird for me because I'm a huge fan of Batman. I was a fan of his as a kid. Loved all the 90s movies, even the bad ones. I still like them. And so I'm really interested in the character. I didn't like Christian Bale that much, and I don't like Batfleck that much, even though everyone's like, oh, he plays the perfect Dark Knight and some of that, and I'm just like, he doesn't really do anything, right? Like, I don't feel like he does anything other than he fits the age and the build, I guess, right? But other than that, I feel like he's so he puts on the cowl and that's it. He doesn't scream to me Batman, right? Not to me.
Yeah, well, he doesn't. He
Um,
doesn't scream to me Bruce Wayne.
or
Well,
that line, right? And
well, I heard that he's already. I heard Affleck's done playing Batman. Like the last,
I
I
heard
think
that,
his
but
last
then I also heard
role.
he's coming back. I
Yeah,
don't know.
he's coming back for his last role as Batman is credited for the Flash movie that's gonna come out. After that, he's not gonna do it anymore.
So like,
So
yeah, they need
yeah.
to find a Batman. Like, and I hope Robert Pattinson. I don't know if it's gonna be it. I have my,
It,
know,
could-
I
you, it
wonder.
could literally be like when Joaquin Phoenix was casted as Joker, everyone was like,
No, I
but
know.
but
I
he
get
fucking
I get
killed it. So
But I feel like that Joker's not gonna come out anymore. I feel like
It's
it was
not.
a one and
Yeah.
done. No,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I know they're doing a sequel, but I don't know. But other than that, I don't think he's gonna be
part of
I
a
don't think
universe
he's
or
gonna
something.
be- Yeah. So they need a whole. They need to fix Batman. Like
Yeah,
they need
that's
to
what
fix
that's what I'm
Batman.
hoping. I think the Robert Pattinson Batman is gonna deal with the Court of Owls. I'm not sure, but yeah, like
Yeah, I heard
Azrael
that
or Red Hood and like all these like Batman could make his own universe with all the fucking shit that he has.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you
With
can.
Court of Owls and with Catwoman and with fucking Talia and all this other bullshit, he can start a whole universe and get some good like fleshed out side villains in his own shit. Just sign somebody for like a 7-year deal or something and get it going, because then you can extend like, oh, the Penguin was shipping shit to Metropolis, and then you can
mean,
start
those
setting
are
shit
cool,
up in
but-
Metropolis, stuff like that.
I like Gotham. Gotham was good. Like a lot of their shows are okay.
Hmm.
I know they're starting to pick up. Like DC's starting to pick up a little bit. I know like the animated stuff is really good still, which is fine, right? But I think what was my biggest point to this is they need to sign Henry Cavill. I know he's coming back as Superman. They need to ride that. As much as people don't, as much as the film kind of flopped in Man of Steel, I still think it's number one in DC. I think it's the best DC film they had. I really like him as Superman. They just need to keep going. Like, don't stop with all the Justice League. I don't care about all that anymore. Like, I don't, Wonder Woman had her chance. I still think Gal Gadot's still fine as Wonder Woman. Just don't do another run of number 84, please. Like, that movie sucked.
Yeah, 84
But,
was fucking awful.
But I think they need to really drive home Superman, Henry Cavill. They need to push it. Just like how they did Chris Evans as Captain America. Same thing. If they can do that, and because I think everyone likes him as Superman, I think he's fine as a character. He's a good actor. He's hot right now. Push him, and then everything else will fold. Obviously, I know Aquaman 2 is coming out, which is whatever. I don't know. I kind of don't care, but whatever.
I really liked the first Aquaman
I
movie,
liked
so
one.
I'm down.
I liked one, but I just
I heard that
that-
I heard the Batman movie is gonna be set in another universe. The Robert Pattinson one.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be set on Earth 2.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's gonna have the Penguin and Riddler as the villains.
Dude, all I know is The Logical Robot is speaking facts. The best, one of the best superhero movies is. I would love to get a new Spawn movie, but the old Spawn movie was so fucking good. So it's like,
Fuck yeah, I
love
agree.
That movie, dude.
No, he's
That
great.
movie's John Leguizamo as the Violator killed it.
so good.
Killed it.
But
Killed it.
all right, guys. I definitely think we've just got off track here with what we were reviewing. But yeah, so Suicide Squad, we liked it. I don't know if you guys will, but if you're watching on YouTube and you
watch
made it this
it.
far, thank you for.
Go
Yeah,
watch.
thank you for dealing with all of our rants and all that good stuff. I think the next discussion is probably going to be either in Invincible or the What If series, because the What If movie, the What If TV show is going to come out on the 11th, and right now of this recording it's the 7th, so we're super close. I don't know if it's in the cards, but I definitely want to maybe talk to these guys about doing a Space Jam talk, but I feel like that time has already passed.
Oh no, no, we're not doing that.
Okay, so
We're
then
not
no.
doing that.
We're not
No.
watching
Yeah,
Space
we're not
Jam.
doing that.
Okay.
Well, I already watched
We'll
it.
do it. We'll
I
do
watched
it right now.
it.
I haven't
We'll do
seen
right
it.
now. Me and Goth will do it right now.
I
I
watched
haven't
it.
seen it.
It sucks,
You
right?
want
It
to know what?
sucks.
It sucks.
All right,
It
okay, we
fucking
did. Yeah, all right,
sucks.
thank you.
All right, there's your mini review of Space Jam. It sucked. But all right,
That
guys,
movie is
that's it for
trash.
me. I will be streaming a little bit later today. I'm probably just gonna take a small little 20-minute break, and then I'll start back up. But yeah, if you guys made it this far, I appreciate it. Be sure to follow the channel both on Twitch and YouTube. And thank you again to Broly and Goss for hanging out and talking movies with me. But yeah, until next time, we'll see you guys in the next little review that we got. But take care, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye bye.